Hi, welcome to Lesson 9 of Fiction and Poetry. Finally, we get to rhyme and rhyme scheme. What everyone thinks that all poems have, right? Oh, but that's not true. That being said, we still need to kind of cover it. We need to talk about rhyme and rhyme scheme, why it works, why we associate it with poetry, and why we use it so often. Now, first of all, we all start out in grade school rhyming, right? We sit down and we say cat, bat, rat, hat. Of course. However, there are different ways of rhyming. We don't simply have end rhymes, right? So, when we're talking about a rhyme, we're looking at the way that the word is structured and the different sounds that different words have in common. Okay, let's look at the poem that we use by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Okay, so Coleridge says, "The fair breeze blew, the white foam flew, the furrow followed free. We were the first that ever burst into that silent sea." Okay, so here we have a lot of melodic qualities to this line, right? To all of these lines in this stanza, right? So, the fair breeze blew, the white foam flew. So the way that we're used to rhyming would cause us to look at blew and flew, correct? These rhyme, obviously. However, they are within the line, right? This is not something that we would normally see because we usually pay attention to the end of each line. If, let's say, a grade schooler is writing this poem, the fair breeze blew is going to be a line on its own. The white foam flew, again, a line on its own, and most likely one right after the other, right? However, Coleridge doesn't do this. Coleridge decides to put both of these words that rhyme with each other on the same line. Okay, so that creates a melody that is within the line and within the stanza right off. Let's look at the next part. The furrow followed free. Okay? Here we have lots of words that start with the exact same sound. So while this is not a rhyme, this is still using some alliteration, right? We're creating words or using words that will cause the line to be melodic again due to the repetition of the sound. Let's look at the next part. We were the first that ever burst. Okay? So, first and burst. Again, just like in line 1, we have an rhyme. Okay, so this is inside of the line. The fair breeze flew, the white foam flew, we were the first that ever burst. Okay, so again, internal rhymes on the inside of the lines. Okay, and then at the very end, into that silent sea. We are rhyming this with free. So, in this case, the first line and the third line do not rhyme with each other, but have what we call internal rhymes. The second and fourth lines rhyme with each other. Okay? So, if we're going to talk about the structure of this poem, we're going to have to talk about the rhyme scheme. All right, so a rhyme scheme, as you saw in the lesson, maps out the way that the rhymes are, right? So in this case, when we are looking at this poem, we're going to say that the rhyme scheme is A-B, because we have flew and free, and then we have burst and C. So since burst doesn't rhyme with flew or free, burst gets its own letter, right? So we have A-B-C, and then C at the very end rhymes with free. So this would be B as well. So our rhyme scheme here would be A-B, C-B. Okay? Even though there is that internal rhyme, we can't map it out that way. When we're talking about the rhyme scheme, we're only talking about that final word. So A-B, C-B. Okay? So let's go on to another poem that might be a little bit easier, okay? Again, the Robert Herrick poem. So, gather ye rosebuds while ye may, old time is still a-flying, and this same flower that smiles today, tomorrow will be dying. Here we have A-B, A-B. We have may rhymes with day, flying rhymes with dying. Now these are very straightforward rhymes. These are rhymes that come at the end of the poem and at the end of the word, right? So, If we're talking about different kinds of rhymes, obviously we can't just talk about these rhymes that are at the end of the word. We can't just talk about smart and art, fellow and yellow, surgery and perjury, right? Those are perfect rhymes. Those come right at the very end and are very easy for us to hear. However, we have to also pay attention to assonants and consonants, okay? So let's talk about assonants first. Assonance is going to be a similarity between vowel sounds. And remember, vowel sounds are A, E, I, O, U, and Y. These are all sounds that we make with our breath, okay? Consonants are B, C, D, F, G, H, J, and so on. These are all made with the lips or tongue, okay? So, assonant sounds. Let's talk about some of those. We have sing, lean, beat, okay? These all have similar sounds. Think of the sound, not the word. I, I. Sing, lean, beat. This is assonance. So when we see this in a poem, it's going to create a completely different melody. We're going to hear it very slightly. It's not going to be nearly as pronounced as when we see something like flew and blue that are at the very end of the word. These are within the word. Okay, another example is boat, bone, mole. These are all the O sounds, right? Boat, bone, mole. And again, this is going to create a different melody to the line. That's assonance. That's going to be the vowel sound. Now let's look at the consonants. So the consonants sound, again, just like the consonants that we have in our language that we represent with letters, it's going to be the same kind of thing, okay? So words such as lake, book, back, okay? This all comes at the end of all the words. We have k, lake, book, back. These are all at the very end, okay? When the consonants are used at the beginning, however, like sing and sell, that's a completely different sound, okay? So this is called alliteration when we have it at the beginning. Sing, sell, stand, okay? This is when the consonant sounds come at the beginning, okay? So keep in mind, when we're using these different ways of rhyming, it should be reflected in the work via the melody of the piece. You're going to change the musical line of your work by using these different ways of rhyming, okay? So if we're going to set up a rhyme scheme for, let's say, Little Miss Muffet, okay, how would we do this? What are we going to look at? Again, we're looking at the ends of the lines, right? Little Miss Muffet sat on her tuffet, eating her curds and whey. Along came a spider and sat down beside her, frightening Miss Muffet away. Now, the rhyme scheme on this one is a little bit different from what we're used to. We're usually used to the A-B-A-B or the A-B-C-B because it kind of brings us back to something, right? It makes a little more sense. This is almost like a sonnet, not just almost, but it is. It's a sonnet. We have A, A, B, C, C, B. So, Muffet, tuffet, way, away, spider, and her. Okay? Let's look at something a little more tricky. Let's look at a limerick. Okay? So we have a limerick by Edward Lear. Okay? Edward Lear, I recommend that you look him up a little bit. He does have quite a few limericks that are rather clever and kind of fun to map out too. So, there was an old man of the coast who placidly sat on a post, but when it was cold he relinquished his hold and called for some hot buttered toast. Okay, this is a limerick because it is set up in AA, BB, A. I know we were talking before in the poetry section, just kind of the overview, talking about the ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba, ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. This is exactly what we were talking about. This is the limerick form. Okay, limericks are lots of fun. They're definitely something that is very musical and that a lot of people like to make up. Okay, so keep in mind, when you're creating a poem such as a limerick, you want to stick with A, B, B, A, right? Whenever you're creating a poem on your own, though, You can use different ways of rhyming. You can use different rhyme schemes. You can use different ways of having the rhyme appear on the page. Do you want it inside? Do you want assonance? Do you want consonants? What kind of rhyme do you want? What kind of melody do you want in your poem? The music of the line is completely dependent upon the form, but not nearly as dependent upon the form as it is the poet. Make sure that you understand exactly what it is that you're doing and what kind of a feeling you want the reader to get from your poem. Use it wisely and use that rhyme scheme, but only when necessary.